Okay, let's jump into this deep dive. Today, we've got a fascinating combination of sources.
Yeah, it's quite a mix. We have an astrological forecast.
Right, for a specific day, June 4th, 2025,
Mhm.
and then alongside it, the first episode of a story.
Magnetic Hearts, The Spark Before Midnight. Also set on June 4th, 2025, exactly the same day.
So what we're trying to do here, our mission really, is to see how these two talk to each other
Exploring the sort of celestial vibes described for that day.
and seeing if, or how, those energies might actually play out in the story's narrative.
We're looking for those key insights, right?
Yeah.
About connection, spontaneity, what that night felt like, according to these sources.
Yeah, and it's interesting because right off the bat, it feels like the story could almost be an illustration of the astrology, like a case study.
It does seem quite aligned. So where do we start? The general energy from the forecast.
Let's do that. It's from Tarot by High C, and for June 4th, 2025.
Well, it paints a pretty positive picture.
It says there's joy in the air, silver linings, and this idea that you have permission almost to be more experimental, more open.
Interesting. Experimental and open. And how does the story pick up on that?
Well, straight away, setting this rooftop bar, the lighthouse, it's described as having a charged night.
Charged. Okay.
Yeah, with the feeling like anything could happen. And the main character, Aubrey, she thinks about a spark in the air, an electric tug.
Oh, okay. So that narrative framing, it definitely seems to echo that open, anything's possible kind of vibe from the astrology. That fits.
Exactly. But then it gets even more specific. And this is where it gets, well, pretty striking.
Oh.
The forecast highlights a really key astrological aspect for that day. Venus sextile Jupiter.
Ah, Venus, Jupiter. That's usually seen as quite beneficial, right? Expansive, fortunate.
Precisely. And the forecast describes the vibe as magnetic and optimistic, and even more pointedly, flirty, flashy, fast.
Flirty, flashy,
Perfecto.
fast. Okay. That's quite specific energy.
It calls it a day tailor-made for connecting. Romantically, socially, even professionally, it suggests.
Right. And the story, does it show that?
Well, this is the compelling part. Think about what the astrology mentions. Witty banter, bold compliments, sudden infatuation, spontaneous crushes.
Okay, yeah.
You immediately see Aubrey and Chase's first meeting. The story describes it as sudden chemistry. Witty banter ensues.
No way!
Yes, and adds compliments that could double as insults. It's that exact rapid-fire, magnetic, slightly edgy dynamic the forecast pointed towards.
Wow, okay, that's a very direct parallel. Sudden chemistry and witty banter.
It really is. And it's not just them. Remember, the astrology also mentioned support for a meeting of minds and how a positive attitude helps people relax.
Yeah, broadening the connection theme.
Think about Kai and Tessa. She just walks up to him while he's having a quiet moment. It's unexpected.
Right, she kind of interrupts his solitude.
And he pretty quickly tells her she's the highlight of his night so far. And they share this. The story calls it a flirty, almost innocent smile. A spark, both surprised by it.
Ah, that unexpected spark again. It does feel like another example of those magnetic, positive connection vibes the astrology talked about.
Right.
Less flashy maybe, but still that sudden connection.
Definitely. But okay, the forecast mentions something else too, something really specific.
Yeah.
That wasn't just about people connecting.
What was that?
It predicted something about buying things we don't need but suddenly must have, impulse buys, basically.
Huh, okay, random. Did the story touch
I
on
won't believe this. There's literally a scene where the group comes out of a vintage shop.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, with bags in hand, things none of them need, but all convinced they had to have in the moment.
That's uncanny. It's almost too on the nose.
I know. And Aubrey's voiceover even hits it harder. She talks about buying a thing you didn't need but bought anyway because it made you feel like maybe you could be someone else just for a night.
So it ties the impulse buy directly to a feeling, a desire for transformation, however fleeting. Just like the astrology suggested, driven by a sudden feeling, not need.
Exactly like that. It all seems to build towards this this central theme that pops up in both sources.
Yes.
The astrological forecast, talking about that Venus sextile Jupiter energy, it culminates with this really striking phrase, charm is currency, spend it on connection.
Charm is currency. Wow, that's a great line.
Isn't it? And guess what? The story explicitly picks it up.
How so?
Aubrey's final voiceover. The very last line of the first episode is simply, charm's currency. Tonight, we're all rich.
Whoa! Okay, so the narrative is directly referencing that core idea from the forecast.
It really seems like it. Leaning right into this concept that on this specific day with these energies, using your personal charm, your wit, your openness, whatever's the main way people are forging these connections.
And you see it everywhere in the episode, right?
Right.
Aubrey's banter, Chase's magnetism, Kai's quiet appeal, even Jasper's charisma.
It's the common thread. It's what seems to be making all these sparks fly, the currency they're all using.
So wrapping this up then, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive?
Well, we looked at this astrological forecast for June 4th, 2025, right? Which really highlighted a magnetic, flirty, spontaneous energy.
Yeah, especially thanks to that Venus sextile Jupiter aspect. And it brought up that charm is currency idea.
And then we saw how the story, Magnetic Hearts, set on that exact same day. Well, it seemed to mirror those things incredibly closely.
Sudden chemistry, witty banter, those unexpected sparks, the spontaneous shopping trip.
And ending explicitly on that charm's currency line. It's quite remarkable how they align.
So together, these sources paint this really vivid, almost synchronized picture of a day just brimming with potential.
Yeah, potential for these quick magnetic connections, these fun, impulsive moments
Yeah.
where just putting your authentic self, your charm out there seems to be the most valuable thing you could do.
It makes for a really compelling snapshot of a moment in time as imagined by these two sources.
Definitely. So, considering how strongly the stories seem to echo the astrology, here's something for you, the listener, to think about.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think those external vibes, whether you call it astrology or just the mood of a place or whatever, how much do you think that stuff influences those spontaneous sparks, those magnetic moments in your own life?
That's a great question to ponder. How much is it us and how much is it
Right.
something else?